Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios here on our program today. And, of course, we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Nick Frazier is here today. Hello, Nick Frazier.
Hello, Jared. How you doing?
Outstanding, although I will tell you, we've got some very, very bad weather last night. We've got some very, very bad weather coming in as far as the weather's concerned. I'm not one to sit here and tell you all what to do, but I am going to say this. Get home early today. Apparently, there are going to be more storms, there's a tornado watch in place until 10 o'clock tonight. Get home early. According to National Severe Weather on Twitter, they say that the atmosphere is recharged and ready for more rolling storms this afternoon and tonight, and that we are stuck on the wrong side of a stalled front. I don't know about you guys, but last night, for me, I was waking up, every 2 hours it felt like, and everybody had to go downstairs, and we had on the TV, and we're going to talk about the Titans, so don't, by any stretch of the imagination, think that I'm about to spend a bunch of time talking about weather, but I am going to say this. I want to give a shout out and just make everybody aware of this here at 102.5 The Game. We value our community so much that last night we ran Fox 17's weather coverage the entire night. From 7 o'clock, wall to wall, through 7 in the morning-ish. The Cromwell stations in town simulcast, that's 102.9, 102.1, 93.3 Classic Hits, you name it. We were simulcasting the Fox 17 weather. It has been made aware to all of us that we were the only cluster of stations, the only stations in town that were doing that. Now, I don't know what everybody else was doing, but I'm just telling you right now, when I saw that weather out there last night, if I was driving in my car and I was stuck there, I would say, oh, goodness gracious, I want something that we will have the weather when it is inclement weather. And I just want you all to know that. Again, not to sit here and poo-poo everybody else who didn't have it. I'm more so just making you aware that when there is inclement weather, 102.5 The Game will have that live coverage for you just to keep people safe. That's the most important thing. And again, we ran wall-to-wall coverage. We had, I thought, a great work all around, but especially Brandon Aldrich, who was supposed to leave at midnight last night and didn't leave till darn near 7 o'clock in order to keep all that weather coverage going. And not only that, Brandon had been working his other job. He's a part-timer for us. He had been working his other job. He was up for 24 hours straight. Again, we want to keep people safe. So, again, if there's inclement weather, and there will be today, right here, 102.5, if all of a sudden they come down with a tornado warning or something like that, we will flip that on right away. So I want to start with Bill Polian today, because here's the deal when it comes to Bill Polian. There are a lot of people in football that have opinions, a lot of people that think they know what they're talking about. I joke about this all the time, but people that, quote-unquote, know ball. But how many of the people out there that no ball have gold jackets? Not many. Bill Polian has a gold jacket. So when Bill Polian speaks about the draft, free agency, quarterbacks, etc., I listen. Now, Bill Polian's not right all the time, but again, drafted Jim Kelly in the first round, went to 4 Super Bowls. Drafted Peyton Manning in the first round, won a Super Bowl, went to another. He's got a gold jacket. Drafted Kerry Collins in the first round, who ended up going to a Super Bowl. I'd say Bill Polian kind of knows what he's doing. So here's what Bill Polian said on SiriusXM NFL radio as it relates to the current crop of quarterbacks, and most importantly, the team sitting at the top that does not have one, and it looks like is going to pick one. Here's what Bill Polian said. General managers with the experience like he has, here's what they think about.
General managers and personnel directors think in the following terms. One, when we're drafting up that high, we want to make sure that a guy is as clean as the driven snow in every single category: height, weight, speed, playing ability, for quarterback accuracy, processing, ability to extend plays, leadership, work ethic, toughness. He's got to be A in every one of those categories.
Got to check a lot of boxes.
He's got to check a lot of boxes. You took the words right out of my mouth. You got to check a lot of boxes. And if he doesn't, you're saying to yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I going against everything that I learned from the time I started as a shaved-tail scout on the road 300 days a year? Why am I doing this when I know that he doesn't check every box? And certainly these guys don't check every box. So because they're not Peyton Manning, they're not John Elway. Manning and Elway, obvious choices. Ryan Leaf didn't check every box. That's why we took Peyton Manning. Are you going to go against that because A, you need a quarterback so badly, and B, because you convince yourself that, well, he'll make up for it with other things? Yeah. And as I sit here now, after, with over 45 years in professional football, my answer is they rarely make up for the deficiencies.
For those deficiencies, Josh Allen was able to do it. Again, the exception, not the rule. Also, Josh Allen wasn't drafted number 1 overall. So Bill Polian says, why are you doing this? Are you doing it because you need a quarterback? Are you doing it because that quarterback who isn't Peyton Manning, that quarterback who isn't John Elway, isn't Joe Burrow, isn't Andrew Luck, maybe one day he can be the guy? Why? So now put yourself in the shoes of Mike Borgonzi or Chad Brinker, a.k.a. Teflon Chad. Put yourself in their shoes. These guys certainly don't have the experience that Bill Polian has. In fact, they basically have no experience compared to Bill Polian. Your entire career, as far as Mike Borgonzi's concerned, Chad Brinker's concerned, your entire career, you've been led to believe that you have to have the franchise quarterback. Chad Brinker said it when he did on-camera interviews on the Titans podcast that Ron Wolf taught him in Green Bay. You better have a franchise quarterback. Mike Borgonzi comes from Kansas City, where they had Patrick Mahomes. So for this very moment, you're in charge. Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker. You have a nice salary, a good parking spot at the facility. People want to interview you, have you on their podcasts, on their shows. People want to get to know you. They want to invite you to the country club. You're running one of the 32 second single most popular entities in the entire country. The reason I say this, I think the NFL is the second most popular thing in America. I think pizza is more popular than the NFL. I think pizza is the most popular thing in the entire country, and then I think the NFL is second. I think the NFL is more popular than beer. I think the NFL is more popular. Again, anything other than pizza. Hamburgers, whatever. I think pizza number 1, NFL number 2. So you're in charge, at least for right now. So I have to ask, why are you risking your career on someone who you don't love enough to turn your cell phone off for and say, hey, other teams, we're not interested. We're taking this slam dunk prospect who doesn't, as Bill Polian with his gold jacket said, compare to John Elway or compare to Peyton Manning. These guys did not win at a high level in college. Cam Ward did not make the ACC championship game. So why am I pushing all my chips in the middle for this guy? Again, Polian says, you've been taught as a scout from the very beginning. No, you don't do that. You don't do that unless they check every box. And these guys don't check every box. But sometimes guys convince themselves. So I think there are probably a couple of reasons, but maybe one more important. They don't know better. Talking about Borgonzi, talking about Brinker, they just don't know better. They haven't lived this. I actually told Chad Brinker one time the story about Bryant Mix. If you remember, in 1996, the Tennessee Titans were the Houston Oilers. And with their first-round draft choice, they traded back in the first round and then traded back up and drafted a running back by the name of Eddie George. I'd say that was a pretty good pick. Their second-round pick was a defensive lineman out of Alcorn State named Bryant Mix. Floyd Reese, the general manager at the time, was running his third NFL draft. He didn't like Bryant Mix. Just didn't see it. The scouts loved him. The coaches loved him. They said, you gotta take him. Gotta take him. So he said, okay, fine, I'll take him. And that was a mistake that he never made again. If I'm drafting a guy, I want him. Now, look, there's a lot of talk about Devin Hester, Lindale White, all of that. I can tell you he definitely wanted Lindale White. He just didn't want him as much as Devin Hester. But he's never going to take a guy early in his career. He learned, if I don't like it, I'm not doing it. And that takes me back to Borgonzi and Brinker. Guys that are looking at an imperfect prospect with the number 1 overall pick and are probably convincing themselves, well, we have to have a quarterback, and he's the best one this year. That gets you E.J. Manuel. Well, he's the best one this year. That gets you Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray is not a bum. But do any of you, when we talk about what Cam Ward can be or what Cam Ward will be, do any of you have dreams of Tyrod Taylor or E.J. Manuel or Kyler Murray? So would you risk your career right now for Kyler Murray? If I had a one-on-one with Brinker or Borgonzi, I think that's the question I'd ask, which is right now, would you risk your career? Would you put all your eggs in Kyler Murray's basket? Steve Keim did that. He doesn't have a job anymore. But he was the best quarterback that year, I guess. It cost them Nick Bosa. And while Nick Bosa isn't the only player on the 49ers have made the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy at quarterback since then. If you make this choice and you take the imperfect quarterback, it will cost you Travis Hunter. It will cost you Abdul Carter. It will cost you Aston Genty. It'll cost you some of these higher ranked players. So unless you see it differently than Bill Polian and everyone else, and you think Cam Ward is Joe Burrow, you think Cam Ward is Trevor Lawrence, you think Cam Ward is this slam dunk prospect, why would you risk your career on a guy who doesn't check every box? Again, you may say, Jared, you don't understand, and that's fine. But are you going to say, Bill Polian, you don't understand? Because again, he's got a gold jacket. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number. That's how we're starting. 615-737-1025 here on the program. And there is an issue that I could absolutely see being a Titans problem that isn't necessarily an Amy problem, but it could be her, but it's definitely an Amy problem from the way things are set up. I'll explain what I mean by that. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
Moving forward, the NFL had a big trade this morning.
Huge.
I don't know if you heard or not. Bazooka Joe Milton,
What happened to the years where teams had showed a little discipline and they took the quarterback maybe where they should go? Teams had more discipline when it came to the quarterback position than they do today, don't they?
Yes, they did. I think part of that is the fact that in the old school scouting days where John Butler and I, God rest his soul, came up, there were hard and fast rules, and you didn't deviate from them. And when you deviated from them, you almost always failed. So people saw that. There wasn't the noise. There wasn't the number of gurus. There weren't the number of people voicing opinions, all of which the owners hear, because the GMs and the scouting directors are immersed in the process. I couldn't tell you who's at the top of whose mock draft. I can't tell you today. I couldn't tell you when I was running drafts because I paid no attention to it. Why would I put the future of my children and my family in the hands of someone who never sets foot on a college campus? I mean, that's crazy. But the owners hear all of that, and the people who talk to the owners hear all of that, and now the club presidents hear all of that.
That was Bill Pulley in Sirius XM NFL Radio. And again, it's like Solomon Wilcots, I think, asks a very fair question, which is, why do teams nowadays don't sit there and say, hey, Cam Ward is the 13th best player in this draft. Cam Ward is the 18th best player. Why don't we wait until, number 9 overall to draft Cam Ward? Why do we have to draft him number 1 overall? And Bill Polian saying, because there's all this noise. Mel Kiper says this, and Daniel Jeremiah says that, and your local talk radio shows say this. And while he, the executive, doesn't hear it, and he's too busy scouting, and he's too busy at all these things, the owner hears it. And then the owner says, well, we need a quarterback. Well, we got to take the quarterback, Jared. What? We got to take Cam Ward. We got to take this guy. We need him, Jared. And again, it's like, oh, great. Now the Stillman and Company program is dictating who we pick. And that, by the way, happens a lot more than you think. I was at the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and I was talking to a very prominent national reporter. And she was talking about how hard she works and this and that and everything else, and about how in-depth the research on her pieces are and the inside information. And she looked at me and she goes, and the problem with these freaking owners is they listen to too much talk radio. And I laughed. I was like, I know. And so when it comes to this Cam Ward decision, I'm not ruling out the idea that the Titans are going to end up taking him, because Amy could be sitting there saying, well, I'm selling tickets for this new stadium and we need a quarterback. But I also don't think Amy's telling them what to do. I'm dead serious. I do not think that Amy, now she'll ask questions, I'm sure, but I don't think Amy is telling them, you have to take the kid from Miami. He's so good. I don't think that's the issue. But I do think that there might be a noise problem. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. I talked to somebody who used to work for the Titans, and they said that when you work for the Titans, when you run the Titans, when you're John Robinson, when you're Rand Carthon, when you're Chad Brinker, when you're, or maybe even Borgonzi, I don't know, when you're one of these guys, you serve a million masters, that you're always trying to make everybody happy. Everybody's got an opinion. There's Amy, there's Kenneth, there's Barclay. There are other people. I don't even know who the hell Susan Lewis is, but she's on the board of directors. She gets an opinion. There's Burke Nihill, the team CEO. There's Chad Brinker, the president of football operations. There's Mike Borgonzi, the general manager. There's Bryce Wasserman. I don't even know if they change his title all the time, but he is the direct line to Amy. He is Amy's future son-in-law, unless they've already gotten married, and then he is Amy's legitimate son-in-law. But again, everybody's got an opinion over there. And what's happened, I mean, this was the case for Robinson and for the people, maybe not the people before him, because I'm just telling you, I talked to someone that used to work over there. So when you were the Titans, there are 1,000 different people to serve. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody thinks it. And I think that might be a problem. That, again, I think about it like this. If I ran the Titans over the last couple of years, what would have happened differently from the way it all went down? In 2023, for instance, I said straight up, I'm running it back with Tannehill and Henry, and we're going to try to win. And in the 2023 draft, I said, I'm going all in for Anthony Richardson, and immediately I'm running to the podium, and I am telling everybody, Anthony Richardson sits the bench, Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback. That didn't happen. And again, at that time, it was, who made the pick? Charles Robinson says ownership made the pick. Mike Vrabel's camp said, we wanted a player that could help us now. Ran Carthon, that's a problem, right? In 2024, last year, they kept saying Levis. Amy even came out and said, before she hired Brian Callahan, we have a good young quarterback. That's the noise. Nobody in the NFL was convinced Will Levis was a franchise guy at that point, but Amy was. There's a lot of noise. And the son-in-law, Bryce Wasserman, again, guys on Instagram posting photos with Will Levis, they're buddies. You don't think that's a problem? That's what Polian's talking about. So when it comes to Borgonzi and Brinker, and it's like, guys, are you sure you want to risk your careers on a quarterback who doesn't check every box, who is graded as the 16th or 17th highest quarterback coming out of the draft over the last 5 years? He's tied with Bo Nix, according to NFL.com, with a 6.39 prospect grade. Why are you doing it? And some of it might be, hey, upper management's trying to sell PSLs, and they tell us that we need an exciting quarterback to be able to get people. Is this who you really want? And maybe it is. Maybe Chad Brinker really, truly does want Cam Ward and is willing, and it looks at him and says, he's Elway. But I have a hard time when everybody who, again, does this for, the real, true, not the gurus, but the people that do this for a living, look at this and say, yeah, he's not Elway. He's not Manning. He's not Luck. He's not Burrow or Lawrence. He's not that kind of prospect. And yet the Titans are like, we'll take him if we don't get a great trade. We'll do that. I guess. And I think some of that might be the noise that they have as an organization, because everything is a committee over there. There's not one person over there. They say it's Brinker, but it's not. He's got a committee. He's got Borgonzi. He's got Ziegler. He's got McKenzie. It's a committee. Even when I reported on this whole Taylor Zarzer thing, it was a committee of people. People I'd never heard of. Who the hell's Dan Worley? Apparently Dan Worley was part of the committee to pick a play-by-play guy. You don't think they have a committee to pick a quarterback? I do think noise is an issue. And that's why it keeps, musical chairs, musical blame. How did Teflon Chad get promoted ahead of Ran Carthon? And how did he stay when Ran Carthon got fired? Because everybody's got an opinion over there, and Chad worked up enough opinions. I think this is part of the equation. 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025 on the Polian comments. Again, he's saying these guys, Ward and Sanders, do not check these boxes. He's saying the reason the teams overdraft these quarterbacks, there's too much noise. Hard to disagree. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
having been in that position a couple of times, I can tell you that it keeps the GM up very late at night and get up very early in the morning. There are a lot of, go to bed at 2 or go to fall asleep at 2 and get up at 5 nights debating that. And the debate, you framed the debate correctly. You got a sure shot player, or as close to a sure shot in the draft as you can find, sitting up there, players in some cases sitting up there, and you got a quarterback who, no matter whether you like him or don't like him, doesn't deserve to be drafted that high. In fact, I would argue that both quarterbacks, Ward and Shedeur Sanders, that all the gurus are talking about, neither one deserves to be drafted that high. Ward is closer to what you think ought to be a top 10 choice than Shedeur is. But we know that quarterbacks get pushed up in the draft simply because of the need and because people want to swing and hope that they hit a home run.
Hey, let's hope that we hit a home run, because Sanders and Ward, according to Bill Polian, they're just not that good. And I've said, if you're Mike Borgonzi, you get one crack at this. Like right now, John Robinson interviewed for these jobs. I mean, this guy took a team to the AFC title game. This guy, won 61% of his games, won division titles, and he can't get a job. He cannot get a job. Rand Carthon is on CBS. He'll never get another job. You get one shot at this, and you guys are going to push your chips in the middle in order to go get Cam Ward, and he's telling you, Polian's telling you that these guys aren't that good. And I have to laugh out loud at something. Frazier, I feel like I'm about to go on a you people rant right here.
Oh, boy.
So I've been reading the YouTube chat as we've been doing this. Bill Polian says they don't check all the boxes. Not like Elway, not like Manning. And you're taught as a young scout that if you're going to take a quarterback number one, they need to check all the boxes. Why do people do this? Well, because they need a quarterback, and then that's when they swing and miss. These guys are hoping, hey, maybe I could hit a home run. That's what the fans think. That's not how Polian operates. Again, Polian says these general managers will think to themselves, well, we can coach Cam Ward into being able to do this. And he's like, in my experience, in my 40 years, rarely does that happen. He's telling you that. And the YouTube chat and all these Titan fans like, Bill Polian, he sucks. And this is the problem with you people. You people have it in your mind that Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback, and there is absolutely no changing your opinion whatsoever. So instead of hearing a guy who has a gold jacket as a general manager, who has been to the Super Bowl 6 times as a general manager, who drafted Jim Kelly, who played in 4 Super Bowls, Peyton Manning, who played in 4 Super Bowls, and Kerry Collins, who played in a Super Bowl. Instead of trusting him, you guys know better. This guy, he doesn't know anything. I mean, what's he know? He sucks. Polian, he sucks. Bum. It's like, what are we doing? But again, you guys want your team to go get Mahomes, so you're going to convince yourself that this guy who Polian's telling you is probably not Mahomes. You guys are saying, oh, well, Polian sucks. It's like Corey Curtis said. He said Lamar was a running back. Right. And nobody, including the Ravens, who drafted a tight end in that first round before they drafted Lamar Jackson, would have drafted Lamar Jackson number 1 overall. But again, you people, the same people that are let Rand cook, you guys are all in. You guys are all in on Rand freaking Carthon. But Bill Polian doesn't know anything, according to you. It's disgraceful. The affirmation bias that you guys want. It is so sad. The amount of people in this world who, again, like I turned on the news last night when I heard tornado sirens. Did I want there to be a tornado? Absolutely not. But I turned it on. And when they were like, hey, Forest Hills, get down to the basement, get into the middle of the room, get away from the windows, I didn't say, you know what? That Melanie Saggio, she doesn't know what she's talking about. No, I got a pretty good idea. She knows what she's talking about. So guess what? I got my ass downstairs into the middle of the room away from the windows. But you people think Bill Polian doesn't know anything. It's amazing. It's like, how could you be so arrogant? Like, what are we talking about? That's like the people that are like, oh, why do you always talk about Floyd Reese every day? I don't know, because I worked with him every day for 5 years. The guy knew football. Maybe that's why. Because he knew it better than I did. You people that poo-pooed the right tackle story. Because again, let Rand cook. You all know better. It's so embarrassing when you say things like Bill Polian is some bum. He's Bill freaking Polian. Again, Jim Kelly wasn't the first overall pick, folks. He wasn't. And he went to 4 Super Bowls. All right, I promised phones. They're driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. 615-737-1025. So a bunch of you have kind of asked this question on the text line, which I want to get to. First one says, Steven goes, if you don't push all your chips in and you pick Cam Ward, who do you pick? Somebody else says that, unfortunately, it's the Titans' luck to have the number 1 pick this year. If there's no trade offer and they're stuck, if this was you, who would you pick? Somebody else said, Jared, we have to draft someone. What are they supposed to do? And this is where I feel like it's really unfair. I spent months telling you Cam Ward is not Jaden Daniels. Shedeur Sanders, according to all of the rankings, including people like Polian that know, all of the people are telling you that Shedeur Sanders is not Joe Burrow. ESPN talked to league scouts, executives, and analysts and had them rank all the prospects of how they viewed these players when they were coming out. Caleb Williams, number 1. Trevor Lawrence, number 2. Joe Burrow, number 3. Jaden Daniels, number 4. And again, you know it's honest when they're saying Lawrence ahead of Burrow, because Burrow's been a better player in the league than Lawrence. But again, coming out, they had Lawrence ahead. That's fine. They had Cam Ward 18th ahead of Michael Penix, Shedeur, and Kenny Pickett. That's it. Like, that's it. They're telling you they're not good. So I spent months and months avoiding this exact situation by telling you I'd go sign Sam Darnold. I probably would have traded Minnesota, one of my 4th-round picks, in order to get Sam Darnold so I could then sign him to a 4-year contract that's really a 2-year contract. I would have made him an offer he can refuse. I'd have given him $40 million a year. Sam Darnold would be the starting quarterback. Oh, Sam Darnold sucks, Jared. Again, Sam Darnold threw for 4,300 yards last year, 35 touchdowns, and won 14 games. You think Cam Ward's throwing for 4,300 yards next year? I would have taken Sam Darnold. And then I would have sat here and taken either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And now it would be Travis Hunter because I don't trust this Abdul Carter foot. But I would have taken Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter if somebody didn't pay me a pony to move up. Because, again, the way I look at it is I now have Sam Darnold throwing the ball to Travis Hunter. And I think that's better than Cam Ward throwing the ball to nobody. That's what I'm. So when you guys, but now it's unfair because people are like, well, what are they supposed to do now, Jared? They were supposed to go back a month and get a quarterback so that they wouldn't be in this situation, which is exactly what happened when Mike Borgonzi was in Kansas City and Andy Reid showed up and they were the worst team in the league. And Andy Reid, with the number 1 pick, did the evaluation and said, Geno Smith and EJ Manuel are not good enough. Let's go trade for Alex Smith. That's what I would have done. And I know. He sucks, Jared. Okay, but I'm not using the 1st overall pick on him. There's a difference. Who cares about the money? It's not your money. The cap is fake. Who cares? But you keep telling me like, oh, so what are they supposed to do now, Jared? They don't have a quarterback. You got to take a quarterback. They put themselves in this situation. By the way, it's so disingenuous. All you bozos out there that hate Sam Darnold and love Cam Ward, you people would love Sam Darnold if they had signed him. Just like you hate Bill Polian, but you loved Rand Carthon. Give me a break. 615-737-1025. More of your phones on this. 615-737-1025. We continue along here on Stillman and Company. Again, if there is inclement weather, so if we have a tornado warning or something like that, we will have the coverage on Fox 17, which is very, very important to all of us here at 1025. Again, everybody knows, be safe. And I'm telling you guys, get home soon. Tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Sounds take on Gwinnett. Pregame at 5:50, first pitch at 6:05. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure.
When you visited with Cam Ward, what's one thing that you learned about him? Not a football-y thing, a human thing.
He's pretty much good at everything he does, from what I hear. Research. He was a good basketball player. He was actually a good golfer, which I recently learned. Good baseball
That seems
player.
very important to you. You're like, oh, here he is. He's going to move up my draft
He's
board
like one of those guys. He's a natural at things he does. So that was interesting to me.
There you go. That was Mike Borgonzi wanting to sit there and say, hey, he's good at everything he does. And of course, I'm sure Titan fans were like, yes. Back to your phones here on the program. Again, I'm looking at Twitter. I need to stop looking at Twitter in the YouTube chat, and I just need to look at the text line. The text line seems to be a lot more normal place than the other two as I go off on this you people rant. Because, again, 3 people have tweeted me, including Corey Curtis. And I expect better out of Corey than I do out of Twitter. But they're like, Bill Polian thought Lamar Jackson was a wide receiver. Bill Polian sucks. And I'm like, First of all, not everybody's right all the time. Even the best coaches swung and missed. Even the best general managers swung and missed at times. But nobody thought Lamar Jackson was worth the number 1 overall pick. And Lamar Jackson very much has been worth the number 1 overall pick. But nobody in the entire NFL thought that Lamar Jackson was worth the number 1 overall pick, including the Ravens, who took a tight end in the first round of that draft before they took Lamar Jackson. You people. You just hear something you don't like, and you go crazy. It's like, oh, no, he sucks. Polian sucks. They all suck. They don't have our opinion. They suck. Again, maybe have an open mind a little bit to, hey, you know what? These guys, they kind of have an idea of what they're talking about. These are the same people that were like, guys, don't get too excited about Levis. He's a franchise quarterback. Okay, Amy. Justin says, the Titans are a day late and $1 short. Last offseason, they should have gotten a right tackle in March, but they didn't. This offseason, they probably should have solved the quarterback problem with someone better than Brandon Allen, but they didn't. Again, when they decided to sign Brandon Allen, I'm like, okay, fine, they're drafting Cam Ward. I wouldn't do it, but they're doing it. So they better hope that they're right and everybody else is wrong. Jordan in Nashville says, another very enjoyable you people rant. I'm a fan and I know we're idiots. Hearing just how stupid we are, though, on Blast is weirdly funny and entertaining. Thank you for that. Yeah, I do wonder that sometimes. I've heard some other stations around the country, very good stations, and I listen to some of these shows. And, the stuff I listen to is not Homer radio, but God, there's a lot of Homer radio out there. People that are like, it'd be better if our team made it to the play-in tournament than drafted Cooper Flagg. I'm like, okay, well, that's stupid. They're like, well, what? So I don't know how you all take it. I enjoy it, but again, some of you people are just crazy. One texter says, so all of the experts say he's not a number 1. However, the one thing they're not there to evaluate are his cerebral traits, which I say are better than 50% of the position. Ability at processing info, etc. Basically everything that Levis isn't, I still wouldn't draft him number 1. Again, Randy in the text line, you have no idea what Cam Ward's cerebral takes or abilities are one way or another. Maybe they are incredible. But what Bill Polian's saying is that's part of the equation. The other part is the physical stuff and that it's shown in the games, etc. To be, again, John Elway. That's what they're talking about. One texter says, but is Cam Ward worthy of the number 1 overall pick this year? I heard Kaharski talking about that. He was going on a rant about, I don't care where he ranks compared to all the other quarterbacks over the years. You need a quarterback, and he's the best quarterback in this draft. And while it's not outlandish, I understand where that opinion comes from. I think it very much matters where Cam Ward ranks amongst all the other quarterbacks. You want to know why? because Cam Ward doesn't get to play against Shedeur Sanders and Tyler Shuck every weekend. Shedeur Sanders is going to have to play against Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and C.J. Stroud and all these other guys every week. Who cares where you rank in the draft? It's more important where you rank at quarterback, because why would you use the number 1 overall pick on a guy who might end up being the 19th best quarterback in the league? That's my Kyler Murray argument. Kyler Murray, best quarterback in a terrible draft. The other quarterbacks in that draft, Dwayne Haskins, may he rest in peace, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock. Ugh. But again, I still wouldn't want Kyler. I would not have drafted Kyler Murray number 1 overall. I never liked his game. And I feel proven right, even though Kyler's made the Pro Bowl. Kyler made the playoffs once. Kyler's not some bum, but I don't want Kyler. Do you want Kyler? If Cam Ward's Kyler, are you going to be happy? 615-737-1025 here on our program. If you want to weigh in, that is 615-737-1025 here on the Stillman and Company program. One of my favorite times of the year. Again, another thing that you people hate. The anonymous executive season of the year. And when they say something bad about the Titans, you hate them. And there's one thing that I think I've dug out who it is. And so I'm willing to dismiss something bad, and I'll explain why. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there, again, stay safe with the weather, that the NCAA men's basketball Final Four updates presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by thenewcumberland.com, Twin Peaks, and Bet365. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and, of course, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So it is one of my favorite times of the year. That's right. What time do you think that is? It is anonymous executive and anonymous coach time. Again, one of my favorite times of the year. Now, why is it one of my favorite times of the year? Because when somebody is anonymous, they can say whatever they want. They don't have to worry about that person getting mad at them down the road. They don't have to worry about a potential tampering charge. They can say whatever. And so we see an anonymous AFC executive says, an anonymous NFC scout says, an anonymous. Now, a lot of you get all whiny about it when you hear something you don't like, but for the most part, it's usually good information. In the past, Mike Sando at The Athletic gave us gems, like one executive saying that Caleb Farley's medical was horrible, or last year that the Titans free agency plan was a complete mess. 2 years ago, Bruce Feldman had a quote about Treylon Burks being, quote, 2 biscuits away from being a flexed out tight end. And last year, all those people told you J.C. Latham was a right tackle and not a left tackle. So without further ado, Caroline sent me a gem from the latest Bruce Feldman mock draft in which he talked to scouts, executives, but most importantly, college coaches. Bruce Feldman is a college insider for Fox and The Athletic, and so he talks to the college coaches. And Caroline sent this to me, and she was like, ooh, what do you make of this? And here's the quote. A defensive coordinator who faced Ward and 4 first-round quarterbacks from last year in the Pac-12, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix, thought Ward was as competitive of any of those players, but didn't think he was as polished or would be ranked ahead of any of them. That's bad, right? So then I did some digging because I thought, okay, well, this seems pretty specific, right? A defensive coordinator who faced Cam Ward and 4 other first-round quarterbacks in the Pac-12. Well, Jaden Daniels was in the Pac-12 at a certain time, that Bo Nix was in the Pac-12 at a different time. So in order for these to overlap, it probably has to be one person, right? And so I think I know who that person is. I could be wrong about this, but I think I know who that person is. I think it's Peter Sirmon, the defensive coordinator at Cal, who is now a linebacker coach with the Saints. Former Titans linebacker, by the way. Now, for starters, I thought Peter Sirmon, when he was the defensive coordinator at Louisville a handful of years ago, I thought he sucked. And I remember when he got hired at Louisville, and I told Derek, because I was in the studio, and Derek was like, oh, good for Peter, his former teammate. I'm like, wait a minute, what, not like a, man, oh, yeah, you always knew he was going to be a great coach. Then I told Floyd, who drafted Peter and had Peter as a starting linebacker on his team, I said, Peter Sirmon got the defensive coordinator job. And Floyd said, oh, good for Peter. Again, not, oh, I always knew that boy could do it. So I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that that quote comes from Peter Sirmon. How many DCs played all those guys in the Pac-12 and also played Cam at Miami? Had to be Cal or Stanford, right? And only Cal, where Sirmon was the defensive coordinator last year, was on Miami's schedule. And Sirmon was Cal's defensive coordinator and had been with them for the last 7 years, which includes all those other quarterbacks. And so then I thought about it. I go, okay, well, where is Peter Sirmon now? Because he's not, when it comes to being Cal's D coordinator, he's not that anymore. He is the linebackers coach for the New Orleans Saints. What do we know about the New Orleans Saints? They sent their entire contingency to go scout Cam Ward at the pro day. And we made note of that. A lot of people made note of that. GM Mickey Loomis went. Assistant GM Jeff Ireland went. Head coach Kellen Moore went. The offensive coordinator went. Almost the same contingent. See that the Titans sent to the Miami Pro Day, the Saints, who have the 9th overall pick, sent the same group out there to go scout Cam Ward. Now imagine this. You are a coach with the Saints who happens to be quotable for an article having faced all these quarterbacks as a defensive coordinator. Wouldn't you say something kind of negative when it comes to Cam Ward? Now, there was a quote in there about how competitive Cam Ward is and how he doesn't want to lose. But wouldn't you say something, kind of, I'd have him behind Penix. I'd have him behind Nix. I'd have him behind all those guys if you wanted him to slide, or if you wanted another team not to want him as bad so you could trade up. So let this be a note for everybody out there when it comes to anonymous source season. Just because they say something you don't like, doesn't mean that it's not true. Again, I'm sure a lot of you didn't like the Caleb Farley's medical was horrible, but it was true. I'm sure a lot of you didn't like Traylon Burks is 2 biscuits away from being a flexed out tight end, but it's true. I'm sure a lot of you didn't like all the crapping that everybody outside of the city of Nashville did when it came to Will Levis last year and the year before that, but hate to say it, feels like it's kind of true. So remember it, but also maybe use some context clues to try to figure out who some of these people are and to figure out what maybe an agenda might be. In this case, I think it's a Saints linebackers coach. I think the Saints have a vested interest in this. And again, just because somebody is a scout doesn't mean they're a good scout. Just because somebody's an executive doesn't mean they're a good executive. But it's at least worth discussing. I told the story yesterday, but I'm going to say it again. I'll never forget Dan Graziano on TV the day after the 2023 draft. And after the Texans took C.J. Stroud, and he said, there are people in the Texans building that prefer Will Levis to C.J. Stroud. And I ran with that. I was like, oh, what do we make of this? Then I found out through the grapevine, at least I think I found out through the grapevine, who Dan Graziano was talking about. And I was like, oh, who cares? So keep that in mind. Again, I love this time of year. I love the anonymous coach season. I really do. But keep that in mind every time you read something. A lot of times these guys are honest. They're straight shooters, they can say. And if they say something you don't like, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily wrong. It doesn't mean that they're lying. But also do some homework on some of these guys. See, hey, do we think that this is, again, and I'm not saying that I know for sure it's Peter Sirmon. I'm making that assumption. But do we think that these guys might have an agenda to push them down? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program. We'll get to some of your phones. 615-737-1025. Plus, there was a longtime ACC head coach, and I'm not going to try to guess who the ACC coach was. But there's a longtime ACC head coach who is not an NFL executive. ACC head coach does not mean NFL executive. Let me ask you this. Would you want Dabo Swinney to be the general manager of the Titans? Of course not. But there was something that he said that if you were Chad Brinker and if you were Mike Borgonzi and if you were trying to convince yourself into taking Cam Ward, I think is a pretty fascinating quote. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5-1063 The Game.
general managers and personnel directors think in the following terms. One, when we're drafting up that high, we want to make sure that a guy is as clean as the driven snow in every single category: height, weight, speed, playing ability for quarterback, accuracy, processing, ability to extend plays, leadership, work ethic, toughness. He's got to be A in every one of those categories.
Got to check a lot of boxes.
It's got to check a lot of boxes. You took the words right out of my mouth. You got to check a lot of boxes. And if he doesn't, you're saying to yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I going against everything that I learned from the time I started as a shaved-tail scout on the road 300 days a year? Why am I doing this when I know that he doesn't check every box? And certainly these guys don't check every box. So because they're not Peyton Manning, they're not John Elway. Manning and Elway, obvious choices. Ryan Leaf didn't check every box. That's why we took Peyton Manning. Are you going to go against that because A, you need a quarterback so badly, and B, because you convince yourself that, well, he'll make up for it with other things? Yeah. And as I sit here now, after, with over 45 years in professional football, my answer is they rarely make up for the deficiencies.
Hall of Fame general manager Bill Polian. Again, in my 40 years of doing this, they rarely make up for the deficiencies. Yes, Josh Allen did it. Yes, Mahomes did it. Yes, Lamar Jackson did it. But this idea that, well, Cam Ward doesn't necessarily do this, but he'll make up for it. Bill Polian is telling you, rarely do they do that. Now, do you know more than Bill Polian? Serious question. So that takes me to something in the Bruce Feldman mock draft that an ACC head coach said about Cam Ward. Because I do think the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward #1 overall. And I do think, given the fact that the Titans have not shut their phones off, the fact that they have told all the insiders that they still haven't made a decision as to whether or not Cam Ward's their guy, it tells me they recognize the deficiencies that Cam Ward has, just like Bill Polian does. Bill Polian's not saying don't draft Cam in the top round, in the first round. He's saying you can't draft these guys #1, trying to convince yourselves, well, we need a quarterback. And you know what? We'll teach Cam Ward how to be great. Because again, in his experience, rarely does that actually happen. Again, if I was a general manager, I might be fired because I loved Anthony Richardson. And I knew what Anthony Richardson's deficiencies were. And I would have taken him with the #1 overall pick. Now, I would have treated him completely differently than the Indianapolis Colts have. I would have sat him on the bench. I would have worked with him, so on and so forth. But I would have gone and gotten Anthony Richardson for the talent. And again, maybe as a general manager, I'd be packing my bags and I'd be fired. But again, Cam Ward, even the Titans know Cam Ward's not Elway. He's not Manning. He's not Luck. He's not Burrow. They know it. He's not Jaden Daniels. Again, they know it. But I want to go to what the ACC coach said. So we took an AI voice and we put this with what Bruce Feldman in his article says is a longtime ACC head coach. That is the title he gave him. And I put it with a coach that I think it might be, but I'm not going to name names. So this is what a longtime ACC head coach had to say about Cam Ward.
His good is really, really good, but he is really loose with the ball. As a runner, when he scrambles, that ball is out there, and he takes a lot of chances throwing it. A lot of balls he threw were interceptions that were dropped, but athletically, he's everything you want. He's got all the arm talent. He's elusive, but he freelances so much. He is so high risk, high reward. I think it'd be scary passing on him because of what he could be.
Oh, so the ACC coach. And again, I'm not saying this is Dabo Swinney, and that voice was not Dabo Swinney. So you know that that's not who I thought that was. But a longtime ACC coach in the end tells you all the things he doesn't like about Cam Ward. He doesn't protect the football. He puts the ball in harm's way, both running and throwing. But he's got arm talent, even though he freelances too much. But I'd be scary on passing it because he could be a star. And I get it. I understand it. But what did Bill Polian just tell you? He told you in his 40 years, the idea that a guy's going to change rarely happens. So when you have the number one pick in the draft, are you going to make that pick in hopes of what, again, a Hall of Fame general manager tells you rarely happens? Like, let me just ask you that question straight up off the top. If you're sitting there and you're saying, well, Cam doesn't do this, Cam doesn't have that, Cam this, Cam that, but he could be, are you going to take him number one overall when, again, a Hall of Fame general manager is telling you that usually doesn't happen? And for me, the answer has to be no. Like, I can't just bank on, oh, well, you know what? All the bad things will be fixed and all the good things will be elevated. Yes, it happened with Mahomes. Yes, it happened with Allen. But again, that is more, there's more Will Levises. There are more Anthony Richardsons. There are infinitely more of those guys than there are of Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, guys that have fixed holes in their games once they've gotten to the NFL. And I could see, again, the Titans, in my opinion, are completely aware of the holes in these guys' games. Like, they're aware that Cam Ward is not John Elway. I mean, some of you guys, when it comes to the Titans, and again, I don't want to you people, but some of you people, when it comes to the Titans, you guys are already sold that Ward's going to be a superstar, even though there's not really anything out there that would tell us that he's for sure going to be a superstar. But I'm talking about the actual Titans themselves. It's obvious that they are not convinced for sure he's going to be a star, or else they would not have any interest in talking about trading the pick. So if Bill Polian were to call Chad Brinker and Chad Brinker were to say, but just look at the talent, I'm just worried that one day Cam Ward might become something special. And Polian says, rarely in my experience, in my 40 years, has that happened. Would you still risk your career on this guy? You tell me. 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, that's 615-737-1025. And our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jordan says, here's where my you people will show, in reference to me talking about you people. I did not want Sam Darnold, and I still don't. I'm not in love with the idea of Cam Ward, but the potential gives me hope. Because the Titans are so low in the dumps, I'd rather see a big swing with potential and excitement ending at 5-12 instead of being boring with Sam Darnold and 7-10. Also, over time, Cam could develop into a franchise 12-5 quarterback. Darnold would probably only do that for one season at the end of his contract, given the state of the team currently. Also, it's easier to bring in expensive, talented pieces around a rookie or young quarterback instead of overpaying just a stable quarterback and expecting him to lift the team. Including a suck tax of $15 million does not make a player a $45 million player just because you want to pay them. So I think the suck tax you would have had to pay Darnold is a 2-year, $40 million a year deal. He got 37 over 1 essentially from Seattle. So I'm paying for 2 years of Darnold at $40 million a year, which, again, $40 million is not a lot of money for a starting quarterback in the NFL. We went over this at the time when it came to Darnold, and I kept saying, Kyler is 46. Jordan Love is 55. Tua is 53. Dak is 60. So I'm talking about $20 million less. Where do you people, and I'm glad that this texter said, like, this is my you people showing through, talking about his you people. Where do you people get this idea that, oh, you'll suck with Sam. You'll be 7-10 with Sam Darnold, but you might be 5-12. You might be 5-12 with Cam Ward. Well, again, Sam Darnold won 14 games last year. And for the crowd of, well, he was throwing to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. Well, again, if I was general manager, he'd be throwing to Calvin Ridley and Travis Hunter. And I think those guys are pretty good. But also at the same time, they had Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson the year before, and they won 7 games. So he's not some bum. When Josh Dobbs was the quarterback, and Nick Mullins was the quarterback, and Jaron Hall was the quarterback, and Kirk Cousins was the quarterback, they won 7 games. They doubled that last year. I understand you want the excitement, the hope. One day he can be a star. Right, I get it. That's exciting for right now in April. Yay, that's exciting. He can be a star one day. Well, who gives a rat's ass? In October, you won't care. Will Levis, this time last year, we talked about, he could be a star because Levis had size, athletic ability, a great arm, and he had shown at times as a rookie that he had potential to be a legitimate NFL quarterback. But potential is French for not good enough. You think Will Levis could ever win 14 games in a season? Nope. So I understand the excitement, but what are we trying to do? Sell PSLs or win games in the fall? Because the difference between me and you is that you are excited about selling tickets, the things that get people jazzed up, jersey sales. I care about building a winning football team. L'Jarius Sneed gets people excited because they can just pretend during it'll be fine season. Who gives a rat's ass? Who gives a rat's ass? His knees will be fine. Jared, it'll be fine. It's fine. It's a. Whereas, again, I'm worried about winning games in the fall. I'm worried about building a football team that can win. So I get it. I understand. You're like, well, I want the excitement that this guy could be a star. Great. You could take anybody and give yourself excitement. You could take Will Howard and give yourself excitement that this guy won the national championship. He could be Brock Purdy. What's the difference between him and Brock? You can do that with anybody. I want proven results here. Unless I'm getting a slam dunk prospect. And Cam ain't that. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. There was a trade today. And at first I criticized the team acquiring the player. But I think I may owe them an apology. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. There's a lot going on with these storms, and nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency. Most of the time, you don't know what it'll cost, if it'll get fixed correctly, or if someone's just trying to sell you something. And when you call Hiller, their experts are going to solve your problems quickly. That's what you need. And the price you're told is the price you'll pay with Hiller, with no hidden fees or surprises on your bill. If you're somebody who is in a spot where you've been thinking about a whole home generator, talk to Hiller today. These storms, if you are thinking whole home generator, if you can do whole home generator, this is the kind of thing that gets you off your tushy to go say, you know what, I've been thinking about whole home generator. Now, let's get it done. Schedule with Hiller. They'll take great care of you, and I know that because I use Hiller at my home. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Hatfish Truck today.
Moving forward, the NFL had a big trade this morning.
Huge.
I don't know if you heard or not. Bazooka Joe Milton, formerly of the University of Tennessee, then of the New England Patriots, has now been traded to the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
Alongside a 7th-round pick, in return, the Patriots will get a 5th-round pick. We all thought that Joe was potentially going to be on the move because he and Drake May, obviously same class. Drake May has proven, even though in a losing bout in his first season, that he's going to be a guy making throws all over the place. Then Joe Milton got some playing time, and I'll tell you what, he was good. He could spin it. He could do a standing backflip. Obviously, not a lot of humans can do that in full pads. You have to be an incredible athlete to be able to do as such. His arm strength is absurd, and obviously he can move. So Joe Milton, we thought, earned himself at least a little bit of attention or opportunity whenever he got on the field, and he now has earned himself an opportunity to be the backup for the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott.
Okay, that was a little surprising today. Again, first of all, as a Titan fan, I would like to thank Joe Milton for his service with the New England Patriots, beating the Buffalo Bills in Week 18 to give the Titans the #1 overall pick. Joe Milton, thank you, sir. And so because of that performance and because of the fact that Joe Milton can throw the ball 9,000 yards, even though we all watched Joe Milton in college, Joe Milton sucks, but that's okay. Because of that, some people got excited, and I understand why. And so today, there was a trade, as Pat McAfee said, which the Dallas Cowboys acquired Joe Milton. And I was sitting there on my phone, and I get notifications whenever Adam Schefter tweets something. And I said, I saw the tweet that the Cowboys were acquiring Joe Milton. And it had been reported in the past, the Patriots' asking price on Joe Milton was a 3rd-round draft pick. Now, I'm not saying I assumed a 3rd-round draft choice, but I was sitting there saying, okay, let's see what the trade ends up being, but it's probably, in the ballpark. He traded a 4th-rounder for Trey Lance. He probably saw the tape of Joe Milton against the Bills, knows he's cheap, knows he's got Dak under contract. So what would Jerry say? He'd say, I want him. But Mr. Jones, in college, he always sucked. I don't care. I want him. The same way he did with Trey Lance. Then the terms of the trade came out. It was a 5th-rounder for Joe Milton with a 7th going back. Well, wasn't Joe Milton a 6th-rounder last year? So they use a 6th-round pick on Joe Milton. He plays well in the preseason. He plays well in the one game they let him play. They're trying to tank. They put Joe Milton in there. Joe Milton looks like a superstar. And then they get rid of him for nothing. But again, they were originally asking for a 3rd-round draft choice, reportedly, according to Tony Grossi. They were asking for a 3rd-round draft choice on Milton, and they ended up taking a bag of footballs. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, the reason they're doing this, the reason Mike Vrabel, the great Mike Vrabel, the reason he's doing this is because he doesn't want any distractions in that room for Drake May. So what does he do? He goes and he gets his guy as a starting quarterback. Drake May's his guy. Now, he says he took the job because of Drake. He took the job because of the Patriots, because he wanted to show up Bill, because they offered him a job, and it just happened that they have Drake May. This wasn't like years ago when all these coaches were praying to get the Packer job because Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback. But he's got his guy. Drake May is his guy at quarterback. He is the franchise quarterback as of right now. He's got his backup. Again, his guy, Josh Dobbs. So there's no room for Milton, who balled in his one start and has always been a total tease of a quarterback. There's no room for Vrabel to entertain any of that in deference to Drake May, which I actually think is the right decision. But at the same time, what happened to Vrabel is Mr. Competition. I don't know. And as the backup for Dak, with Joe Milton, whatever. He didn't give up much. That's why I think somebody will make a trade for Levis to be the backup when all said and done. But I was a little surprised. 615-737-1025. Tyler says, Bill Polian says any player has to check all of the boxes to be taken that high. What do you do if you don't think anyone checks all of the boxes and you aren't getting the kind of return you feel is good value for the number one pick? Do you take a lesser trade or a lesser player? Is it possible that this is just a rock and a hard place situation? Nick, if you could, yesterday, well, I think we actually have it today, Brian Callahan was on SiriusXM NFL radio when he was asked about trading the number one pick. And I don't really care about what Brian Callahan says, but I want you to listen to Pat Kerwin's question. The great Pat Kerwin, who has been a coach in the NFL, he's been an executive in the NFL, and he's been on NFL radio and in NFL media for a long, long time. Pat Kerwin is a good man and is a smart ball guy. And so Pat Kerwin was interviewing Brian Callahan at the owners' meetings. Listen to what Pat Kerwin said when talking about the number one pick and his previous experience.
Last one for me. When I was in the league, we had the first pick in the draft, so I know what life was like.
Yeah.
Back then, for the listeners, we would interview the top three guys because signability was an issue. The year we had the first pick, there wasn't a quarterback in the draft for the first round. We couldn't move out if we wanted to.
Sure, I think that's always
okay
on the tape.
So he's telling you when we drafted in 96, which is what he's talking about when he was with the Jets in 96, there was not a quarterback in that draft. Tony Banks. You remember Tony Banks was the starting quarterback of the Ravens that year that they went to Trent Dilfer and won the Super Bowl. Tony Banks was the starting quarterback the top quarterback in the draft who went in the second round in 1996. There was not a quarterback. Pat Kerwin on the board, those guys are like, we'd love to trade out. And everyone's like, yeah, we don't want the pick. So what do you do if you're in that situation? Very fair question. You take the best player. In that case, it was Keyshawn Johnson, who they took number one overall. In the case of the Kansas City Chiefs in 2013, again, the E.J. Manuel Geno Smith draft, they drafted Eric Fisher, a left tackle. And Eric Fisher was a good left tackle. And I don't think there was that big of a difference in terms of their careers between Eric Fisher and Michael Roos. But that's not forcing a quarterback into the equation just because we have to have a quarterback, or forcing a trade if nobody wants the trade, forcing a trade just because, oh, well, we just have to trade the pick. And so for me, what I would have done is I would have signed a quarterback because I don't love these two guys. And then I would either be telling teams like, I'm drafting Travis Hunter or I'm trading the pick. So if the Giants want to come up, I'll take less to move off of Hunter to move to 3. I'll take less. Again, Twitter says don't take this trade, but I would right now trade the pick for 34, 99 in the third round, their second next year, and to move back to number 3. So that's 2 seconds and a third to move back to number 3. I'd do it. 3 extra top 100 picks. But that's what I do, and I could still probably draft Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, although Carter's foot scares me. I could still draft one of those players there. Joey from Bellevue says the Titans should draft the best player available. Unfortunately, they will not. We shall see. Jury's out on that. 615-737-1025. I had a take yesterday that some people don't like. But the reason you don't like the take has nothing to do with the take itself. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 on 1025 and 1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there here on the program that this week's Nashville's Best Deal comes from Bad Axe Throwing Nashville, downtown's largest axe throwing venue and your go-to spot for food, fun, and vibes. Also, the Atlanta Braves country road trip is coming to town and teaming up with the Predators in 1025 The Game. Join us at the BetMGM Sports Lounge in Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, April 16th for a Braves watch party as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays at noon. There'll be free giveaways like hats and t-shirts, plus you could win an autographed baseball and free tickets. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events. and Company. By the way, Frazier, I did send it to you. I love you, Frazier. Also, we are tracking a tornado warning that has been issued for Maury, Rutherford, and Williamson counties. According to Nashville Severe Weather, that it is saying that Southern Williamson County, Thompson Station, Fairgrounds, Page High School, McKay's Mills, Sullivan Farms, shelter now. That is according to Nashville Severe Weather. And if it gets any worse, we will go live to Fox 17's coverage. So this would be the return cut here if we didn't have to tell you about a tornado warning issued. This was a take I had yesterday on the program that apparently pissed off Adam Vingan enough to rant about it on the midday show, and it revolves around UC Saros' terrible contract.
I'm not going to argue that UC Saros has not had a bad season, because he's had a bad season. It's been the worst season of his career. It's been the worst season of a lot of Predators players' career, UC Saros included. This idea that the UC Saros contract is the NHL equivalent of the Deshaun Watson contract. Oh boy, let's just start with this. He mentioned you traded the future asset, right? Because they signed UC Saros, the Predators, you traded Yaroslav Askarov, who requested a trade. By the way, Yaroslav Askarov in 13 games and 12 starts for the Sharks this season, 4-6-2 with a .310 goals against average and an .896 save percentage. The Houston Texans received the Browns' 2022, 2023, and 2024 first-round picks, along with fourth-rounders in 2022 and 2024, and a third in 2023. So here's my point, and I think Joe Rexroad actually made this point quite well yesterday on Jared versus Joe, because Nick Frazier asked this question. I think we all can agree that Deshaun Watson is cooked. Deshaun Watson, UC Saros has had a bad season, but this is what Rexroad said yesterday. I'm not ready to declare that UC Saros is done as a starting caliber, Vezina Trophy caliber goalie in the NHL. So this season has been bad. No doubt about it. But I feel like this was not something that Jared was prepared to say, but it popped into his head, and he can't resist. Mm-hmm. But that is a whopper of a take from Jared Stillman, and he's had some.
Okay. So again, Adam is right. It did just pop into my head as I was ranting and raving about how terrible this UC Saros contract is. But that doesn't mean that the take's wrong. And forget about the sexual assault stuff with Deshaun Watson. That's not why this contract has been a disastrous contract for the Browns. Now, again, I wouldn't have traded for Deshaun Watson, and the number one reason that I would not have traded for Deshaun Watson is the baggage. But forget about that. When they made this trade, I remember sitting there, and I was disgusted. I was disgusted at Atlanta, at Carolina, at New Orleans, at Cleveland, to let that guy on their team and basically say, well, it wasn't found guilty. Glove didn't fit. You must have quit. So let's make him the quarterback. I was appalled by that. But when they signed him to the completely guaranteed contract, I was like, what? For Deshaun Watson? Like, Deshaun Watson's good. Deshaun Watson, to that point, was good. Deshaun Watson's not great. He's not Mahomes. He's not Burrow. He's not any of those guys. You give him a fully guaranteed contract? Who does that? You don't give that to that guy. And because they gave him a fully guaranteed contract, they had no second option. The Falcons have a second option with Kirk Cousins because the contract is not fully guaranteed. Russell Wilson, that was a disaster for the Broncos, but they were able to get out of it. When it has come to the last handful of seasons with Cleveland, Cleveland's had a good team. Cleveland has had a good team. They made the playoffs last year without the help of Deshaun Watson. But really, all Cleveland's been able to do is sit there and hope that he plays better. And I would agree. The writing is on the wall that Deshaun Watson is cooked. The owner has come out and said, we swung, we missed. And as of right now, we can't say that Saros is for sure a pumpkin. But UC Saros is locked in for the next 8 years. And there's nothing you can do about it. And there's nothing they can do about it because they made the controversial choice to sign UC Soros to a contract that gave him this level of protection. If UC Soros didn't have a full no move, you could trade UC Soros. You could waive UC Soros. You could attach a first-round pick and send Soros somewhere else and get that contract off your hands. You can't do it now. It's got a no move. They thought he was something he was not. They got rid of their plan B. They are stuck with him. And I am going to guess that they, unless he plays better, they are going to lose their jobs. And the only way he plays better is hope. That's it. Okay, with that, it's time to go to Fox 17's weather. We've got tornado warnings. We want to keep you safe. Get home safely. Here's Fox 17's weather coverage.
We'll keep that CG up, but this has passed Murray County now and is solely a threat for Williamson County and Rutherford County. The Rutherford County part of this cell is really going to it's clipped by Rutherford County. This is primarily a Williamson County tornado warning that's in effect here. So again, we're watching this closely at I-840 and 65 in Rutherford County. So if we can maybe double box this, and Brett, kind of help me keep an eye on that camera if we can't see something that pops up there. But this is where we're looking right now. So there is 65 and there is 840 right around Thompson Station. So if we were to see something, this is going to be the area that we would be looking at it. And it is moving to the north and to the east here. So, and that is looking southward, correct? I believe. I think it is looking south. So again, that's the area of concern here. We're going to put another track on this as it continues to push close to the I-65 840 corridor at this time. And I would say rotation most likely